Hello and good evening, everybody. You are back live with the crew. Thank you so much for being here again tonight. Man, I see everybody in the chat here just flying by. It's really good to have our special Thursday night guest back. Halloween and fun and all those other things kind of got in the way the last week or two, but that's been awesome. And how are you doing tonight, April?
Doing wonderfully. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah, that's been, boy, everybody just saves up their questions just waiting. So it's going to be fun to go through some of these. I have actually a question that somebody's hit me with about 5 minutes before we went on the air. And somebody asked me, Allan, I had to kind of wrap my head around this one. I was like, oh, no, you haven't sold it yet. So no, it makes sense. But somebody said, okay, I put 10,000 coins in, I sold it to my trust. Okay. And then I spent the base or my cost base price. Let's say I put it in there at 50 cents and it went to $1. Mm-hmm. And I have 50 cents of capital gains, correct? Mm-hmm. All right. What if that, and you've already spent the 50 cents and its value, okay? What if the coin that's still in there drops down below its value of what you put it in at?
Okay.
And I said, well, you've either sold the coins and spent them or you have not sold the coins, correct? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it
did I describe that very well?
Well, the demand note or the cost, you spending the cost of it, the demand note is separate than what you decide to sell it or if the asset drops or goes up or down, right? There's no difference. It's just you as an individual have sold this asset for 50 cents at your cost, even though it's gone up to $1, maybe it went down to 25 cents. You are still owed 50 cents because that's what you sold it. You sold the asset to. It's just a mechanism, right, for you to be able to pull out up to your cost and not be taxed on money owed to you. But yeah, assets do that. They go up and down, right? And there's a way to maybe.
Yeah. So like to spend the base, I'm going to call it the base. To spend that base, you actually have to sell the coins on the market, correct?
Well, you have to have some type of liquidity in the trust somehow, whether that be, right? I mean, if you still have the hard asset of crypto, you haven't sold it, but you need to pull out some money, out of there for food, fun, fashion, but you have other assets in there. Maybe you have a rental that's producing rental income monthly. Well, that's liquidity in your trust bank account, selling a property, other property besides crypto. So there's other, or you're earning capital from your operating capital from a business. You could have liquidity in your trust bank account from other sources, and you'll be able to pull up to your cost for money owed to you, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be that exact asset to be liquid in order for you to pool.
Great, great explanation. That's kind of what I was telling her, but I wanted to make sure I explained it to her correctly.
Okay.
So here, I'm going to go ahead and just start popping up questions because we got a bunch of them we want to get to, and you're so good at answering them. Here we go. You and I discussed something right before show about this. Okay.
Yep.
So first of all, I want to say to everybody, Donald Trump says a lot of things. I hope there's no capital gains on crypto. That would be fantastic for everybody, all parties concerned. But I do want everybody to understand that's not the only reason why you would get one of these trusts is just for capital gains. In fact, currently, if you've owned it for over a year, it's only 18%, right, April? So like you're really only saving 18 grand on 100, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong. And that's quite a bit of money, but it's not the only reason to have a trust like this for number one. But let me redirect John's statement here and ask you the question that we just kind of maybe got a little more clarity on with our Canadian followers. What you and I still have a bit of homework yet to do on this, okay? But we're closer, right? What can we explain that we learned just recently about this for Canadian people and specifically? Yeah.
So, so our Canadian friends who live in Canada, they operate out of Canada, they have their properties in Canada. What getting a trust in the United States, which would be our type of trust, sometimes it does not make sense, right, for you to get this type of trust. There's a reason, and a good reason, capital gains tax that has gone up tremendously in Canada, which I think you were sharing with me, Allan, 60%, absolutely wild. And so what we are deciphering, we have the majority of the information, but we're just going to clarify a few more pieces. But as we understand it, you being a citizen of Canada, if Canada does not have a tax on foreign assets, so every country is different, we actually have to find out if Canada has a tax on foreign assets. So if you had a property, a piece of real estate or land in the United States, does Canada tax you for that, right? That's a really good indicator. If they don't, then literally, yes, you can set up this trust. You can live in Canada, set up a trust with a US address, get the trust domiciled in the US, and you can defer the capital gains tax when you sell that crypto.
That's great news in a lot of ways, because I know a lot of Canadians do own property in the U.S. So what would constitute? I know you're not a lawyer, but what would constitute owning property? Can that be a PO box? Probably not, right?
Yeah, no, I meant it's just literally a physical address. You don't have to own any property here in the U.S. You just need to get an address. So it could be a PO box. You just need to get an address and obtain the trust here. So that's fine. You don't have to own, like I always thought, right, that you'd have to own some type of interest in the United States, run a business out of the United States, have a piece of real estate here, show that you have some type of U.S. interest in order to really benefit from our type of trust, right? But that's not 100% the case all the time. It's really going to be dependent on the country that you live in and what the laws that they have. But our trust can hold both domestic and foreign assets. But we just need to kind of do check off more of those boxes for you, and we'll definitely get back.
Yeah. I keep getting a lot of the same question. It was big news today that Trump said, well, I'm going to get rid of the capital gains tax for crypto. Again, that's wishful thinking in a lot of ways. I hope he does it. I think it'd be fantastic. I think it would spur on more. Well, first of all, a lot of people wouldn't have to hold their coins for a whole year to drop that capital gains tax. So there'd be a lot more buying and selling. Hey, wow, mine doubled overnight, so I'm going to go ahead and sell that and wait for another entry. So that would I think it could stimulate the economy in a lot of ways. So that'd be really good. More cash flow through the system. However, those tax codes can't just flip overnight, correct? How does that exactly have to go through? Exactly, or do we?
Yeah, I would not know that information, but we could definitely get some more clarity on that. It's
right.
When the tax changes. I know it's a lot of quicksand out there.
Yeah,
on that
that's
side.
right. Yeah. However, capital gains tax doesn't do anything for you being sued or you being passive income, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the three reasons why you would get this type of trust is truly for asset protection, but also asset control and tax control. So you're right. It's only one of the issues is the tax control. But if you've amassed enough, assets where, you could have a target on your back and somebody can take something from you, this truly is a way for you to own nothing and control everything and be in a position of strength, even if the tax code changes here or there. It's not going to affect you because you're using a specific tax code on the complex side of the tax code. where most of the changes happen on the simple side. And there's a lot of movement that always happens, right? 90% of the money that goes to the IRS is from W-2 wage earners, right? There's a whole kind of section. There's a lot of movement on the simple code. The complex code doesn't change that much. And so being able to have this trust and moving your crypto and other assets into it, having that asset protection, but most importantly, you're in a position of strength now. You can really get your footing, even when around you.
Right. Okay. We have another question here from a newcomer to the show. Simon says crypto. Never heard of the man before. But anyway, it's good to have you here, Simon. How can we put IQD in the trust? That's a tough one, Simon. Explain yourself just a little bit better on that. Do you know what he's talking about here?
Mm-mm.
April?
No, I don't. IQD. Is it an acronym? No, I don't see it. No. What's IQD?
Yeah. I think he might be talking about
Is it a coin?
Who knows with Simon? He could be talking about, I'm not sure what he's talking about, IQD. He'll come back in there. I'm just kidding about who he is. He's a good friend of mine, and he and I do a show together about IBC. He's an IBC expert, if you will, put it that way. He and I do a Tuesday night show. I was kind of, sorry. I should have known that one.
So you can put any asset that appreciates inside this trust. So it just depends on how you're holding that, right? If it's in a hole in your backyard and you're keeping it safe and then you're just selling it to, your friend next door, is it necessary, right? I don't think that you're going to pay tax on that. You're talking about things that are out there on exchanges, things that are public, things that are recorded. Those are these are the things that are appreciating. If you go to sell it, you're going to get hit with tax. So in that case, it just depends on where that's at. And it can. And I've heard some great things that may explode and there's a windfall. And you can put that in the trust.
So it can be any asset. It can be a 57 Chevy, right?
Sure can.
So you would sell that to your trust. Doesn't mean you don't have the keys to the Chevy anymore. It doesn't mean you can't drive the Chevy anymore. If it's Iraqi dinar or gold bars and you dug a hole in your backyard, you don't have to undig the can of dinar and go anywhere with it because you're in control of it. Just like your crypto wallet, you don't have to. This is a question I get a lot. Oh, okay, Allan. So where do I transfer my crypto to the other account? You don't, right? You just do a bill of sale, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
So there's a bill of sale for the asset protection piece, but then before you sell, then that's when you want to do the movement and make sure that all the logistics are there with the right paperwork and that you've swapped out like your social security number for the EIN number that's been established for your trust. So the trust is attached to that gain and it's not you getting taxed.
Right. That's right. Just like all assets, no, I shouldn't say that. Almost every asset I can think of that earns an income on itself is passive, correct?
That's right. That's right. If the asset makes money, it's passive.
And the only difference between the two is I'm either making the money or the asset's making the money. A lot of people that's tough for a lot of people who are out there head around. That's the biggest question I get most often. Well, what if I did this? And by the way, just for all you crypto people out there, I was speaking with somebody just yesterday and the new Ledger Nano coming out, you're actually going to have numerous different keys in it that you're going to be able to stake. And you're also going to be able to use your AMMs directly on the apparatus itself. Really interesting. I wanted to interview the guy live, and he's like, absolutely not. We're not ready to launch any of that stuff. So I was like, I need to exclude it. He's like, no, we're not doing that. But when I do, and when we are completely launched. So in other words, yeah, April, just to give you a little crypto background, it's essentially like a little keychain that is a code. And that thing is going to be generating your income. I know it sounds crazy to a lot of people, but it's coming, and it's real close. It's just going to be working for you 24 hours a day. Huh. Yeah, it's really fun. Anyway, let's get back to this stuff here. So, April, today we ran into a guy. We won't use his name because people in this group know exactly who he is. But there was an interesting little twist that you did specifically. But you were talking about how the next generation might want to open their own trusts, okay, to split the difference. Now, I've had another man in Florida. He knows who he is. And he was asking me the same thing. I don't really necessarily like these two children. I kind of like the grandkids a little bit more for whatever the reason is. And then it's weird how I've had that happen a couple times already, just in talking with people. But what kind of came out to me in the short period of time that we had today going over that family's trust and how it would all lay out was I'd like you to explain how, even if they're your kids, if they need a car or to purchase something into living expenses, dad can, in this case, can still choose to buy whatever item it is until dad passes and the beneficiary run the trust, correct?
That's right. That's right. If dads and moms or grandpas and grandmas are coming in and getting this trust structure, and specifically living in the concept of own nothing, control everything, because if you own something, it can be taken from you. But if you control it, you're in a position of strength and you can pass that on to the next generation. Then you want to teach your kids and your grandkids that same thing. Don't distribute money to them so they could buy their car so they own it and so it could be taken from them. Teach them to, okay, here's the trust car. It's in the trust name, but you could drive the trust car. If you get in an accident, it's okay. The car can't be taken and you can't be sued. They could sue you for human life value if that person gets killed for, X amount of what they could have been worth for their family, with the income.
Right.
That gets off the table. So you just teach your kids, right? And you pass the baton to them. They are beneficiaries while you're alive. When you pass away, you've named them as successor trustees. Now they step in the seat. So to your point, it's like, just don't distribute. Buy the assets and they're maintained by the trust, but the beneficiaries still have beneficial interest. Live in the beach house, drive the trust car, right? So yeah, absolutely.
So let's call it grandpa in this case, who owns is the trust. He's in control, right? He owns nothing and he's in control of the trust. So he can distribute anything from the trust to any of his children up to what age? Or if they're at any age?
And you cut out a little bit. What was that? Repeat the question, Allan.
They can. So grandpa, in this case, the person who wrote the trust, can distribute evenly or unevenly to any of his kids or grandkids.
Yes. So he could distribute, but whoever's receiving that has to pay ordinary income tax on what they receive. It's totally fine. I think we were talking about kind of that waterfall effect, that if we have two adult kids, more of our mature families do this because they're getting older. The kids are older. The kids now have their own spouses and their own children. And so we find that we can meet them in the middle, where the trust structure is here to defer, but it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. There might be a point where it's like, I want to distribute my assets evenly between my two kids. Like, I want that to happen. Okay, fine. So you can distribute, just make sure that your two adult kids have their own beneficial trust that's using the complex tax code to continue to defer. So it may come out of the trust, but it's landing in another trust using the tax deferral mechanism, right? So you still get the best of both worlds. And now they can name their beneficiaries and their, and their kids, and keep their microcosm separate. They have their own house and cars and
right. Yeah, I love it. Okay, we have one here. After we allocate funds in the trust, can we use trust funds to trade with X using Caleb and Brown crypto broker? Oh, okay, yeah, we can, clearly. So how would that work, April? We would put it we would put our brokerage account into our trust, correct?
Yes. So it's similar to, let's say we have Charles Schwab is the custodian for stock. You call up Charles Schwab and you go, hey, I just need to make an account change. I need to switch out my social that's attached to these stocks, and I need to put my EIN number here. Boom. They may charge you an account change fee. Sometimes they do that. Even private equity funds, a similar situation. You just need the paperwork to trade it out. Update the W-9 form, right? So when there is a taxable event, that it's attached to your trust. So yes, absolutely, this could work.
Love that. It's one of my favorite things about this trust, actually, is being able to put essentially my whole life in it and own nothing. And it's just really, as everybody knows in this group, that's what I do for a living, and that's how they all do it. It's not, yeah. Okay, we get another one. What are the benefits? Can I die in the house to revert back to designated beneficiary? Okay, do you understand that question, April?
So, there's so many different trusts out there, and I think that's part of kind of the issue, right? There's a lot of noise, and it's how do you differentiate, what works and what doesn't. The framework and how a trust is designed is one of the most crucial pieces. And we can kind of build that out or show you visuals later. But if you sell your house and your car into the trust, and you are the trustee, right? You're the trustee of the trust. You get to move and manage the assets as you see fit. And then you're also the trust administrator, which means you can hire and fire trustees. You can hire and fire beneficiaries, right? You are the guardian of the trust. But there's going to be that day where you pass away. Well, what's already had been done within the framework of your trust is that you would have named your successor trustee and successor trust administrator. And a lot of times, these are our adult children. So when you start your trust, yes, you're the trustee, they're the beneficiaries. But when you pass away, they are now the successor trustees. So they step inside the seat. There is no distribution. They are no longer the beneficiary. They are now in charge to move and manage the assets that you've worked so hard for, and they continue to maintain those assets. Did that make sense or answer the question?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I was going to explain it the other way around, and I would have messed the whole thing up for sure. Yeah, well done. We kind of went over this, but yes.
Yes,
right?
yes. Sports cars, especially collectibles.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. I mean, shoot, you may sell those one day. You want to get some, the asset protection, but the tax control as well.
It's a funny story. I have a friend of mine that has he's got a very old farm around here, and his wife passed a few years ago. And he said, well, I'm going to die here pretty quick. So I'm just going to sell everything off, and I'm just going to go travel around and I'm just going to get out of town. And what he didn't realize was all of his old tractors and cars that he'd been collecting over these years were literally worth millions. And he had no idea.
Oh my goodness.
No idea. And people were going in there in the beginning, they were buying them from him for like 10 cents on the dollar. And everyone's like, what are you doing? What do you say? Oh, it's just an old clunker car. I'm just getting rid of the scrap metal. Yeah. It was, so he had way more money than they thought he did.
Oh
and it was
my.
all in collectibles. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
His wife collected these plates, I guess, art plates from way back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. I guess they were priceless, some of them. Anyway, it was a fun story.
That's all of the, exactly, rare paintings, all of that stuff can go in, and royalties, right? Again, it's when that passive, one of the 6 types of passive income is royalties. So when you sell a collectible, you bring in royalties. That can be deferred as well.
That's right. This right here touches on, I have 2 LLCs. Okay. One is real estate and the other is a side hustle business. Well, I'm less of a fan of LLCs. Where do you come in on that, April? Should they hold off on getting one if they think they're going to get a trust?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, LLCs, corporations, all of them are statutory entities. So kind of the cons of it versus the pros, right? Cons is you have the Corporate Transparency Act, all these, it's statutory, franchise tax, or depending on where you live, kind of the taxes, the upkeep. Sometimes when you have real estate, you have an LLC for each piece of real estate to, mitigate the risk. If one goes down, the rest don't fall. But again, it's costly. You're having to maintain a lot of entities. And so we find, like right now, I operate an LLC. I'm a business owner, but I have a dual structure because I have a tax problem. I pay more than $30,000 a year in tax, and I'd like to defer that. So I still have my LLC, but I use a dual trust structure. One is a business trust that is just designed to take in active income from my LLC. And then it is designed to distribute into my beneficial trust, that one that we've been describing, that holds all our assets and all the passive income that those assets produce. So we use the dual trust structure to defer up to 90% in the LLC. So you can keep your LLCs, but we also want to see, is it necessary to keep them or not, right? Some business professions require a statutory entity in order to operate, like an optometrist. Their license is tied to their name. So they have to have a statutory entity. But in the crypto space, I have quite a few clients that are consultants in crypto. They're flying to Dubai and other countries, and they're living in New Jersey, as an example, and they're bringing in all this money. So that it makes sense to not necessarily have any type of statutory entity. They just use the business trust in lieu of an LLC. But in this case, if you have 2 LLCs, you have partnerships, one thing, if you have real estate, it's fine. You can use the trust as a modular bolt-on and suck off up to 90% of the net income, or just close down the LLC and use the trust in lieu of. Can describe both of them and kind of go through that. For your side hustle business, seems like, is it to help compensate so you don't have such a big tax bill on the real estate? Is it taking a loss each year? So you really are needing the trust structure when you have a tax problem and you want to defer the tax. If you have losses, no big deal. So
yeah, I have some crazy friends. I really do. I just realized I have crazy friends. I have a friend who he's started an LLC, right? And what he ran into is like, well, how do I make my labor intensive car washing side hustle? How do I make that passive income? Because it's him waxing all these cars. Well, he rented out the car washing machine. He came along with the rental of it and didn't charge an hourly. It just charged, okay, it costs you whatever to rent the machine for the day.
Oh my goodness.
And you get a clean car out of the deal. Anyway, it was like, I'm like, man, I hope you got a good tax guy.
Oh my goodness. That's a way to, woo.
Yeah.
That's a way to get.
He's an entrepreneur, if you know what I mean. Okay. Northern, you came in kind of late, but we can't answer that one. We don't know enough about that one yet, brother. I was gonna hit him with that one, but I don't think we're gonna do that. Let's see. Yeah, we already did that one. And I know one that's come up. Oh, here's one. No. We already went over that. How does it work? Digital assets are in an LLC. We just went over that too, pretty much, Luke. Hopefully, you got the answer to that. Something else came up the other day when I was talking to somebody, and what they were concerned about, April, was if I have a business, okay, and I'm at that borderline position, like, I know the number you use is $30,000, but maybe we should go over that. It's like, well, should I really get two trusts or should I get one trust? Should I get the business trust? Maybe we could kind of clarify that math, because she was in the middle of going, well, it's just a tiny little vegetable stand and it's only in the summertime and it gets really busy, but
right.
This and that. Should I do it because I'm getting bigger and bigger every year? What's your parameter, if you will? What's your guideline? And then also people are asking me, what's a waterfall trust? And I'm like, well, that's not a specific trust, correct?
That's
it's
not
actually
a term I'm using just because
okay.
it's just distributing it out into other trusts that you may have, right? Just waterfalling it. But yeah, not a specific type of trust. But.
Okay. So back to the first question, what's your guidelines? What's your basic?
So look at it. The first step is kind of working backwards on what type of entity is the business owner operating right now. If they are an LLC, taxed as an LLC or a partnership or a multi-member, right? But they are using the underlying entity as an LLC, then you can get away with just a single trust, because you can make that trust, that beneficial trust that's holding all of your assets and the passive income, you can make that trust a limited partner, because there's membership interest, there's a limited partnership agreement, right? And you can defer up to 90%. However, we find that a lot of our business owners may have started as an LLC, but then they elect to be taxed as an S Corp. Well, that changes everything, because an S Corp does not have membership interest. An S Corp cannot have a limited partner. I mean, up to a certain, it's very minimal, right? A certain amount. It's negligible. So in that case, if they're an S Corp, really about the timing. Like right now, we're on November 15th, 14th. We're running into a lot of business owners that are like, oh my gosh, I need to hurry up with this and defer tax this year. And they have an S Corp. There's not much help one single trust can do. You can only defer maybe 50, 70%. It's a leaseback agreement. It has to look at the last quarter. It's just the timing and everything. It's not so beneficial that if they were to set up a dual trust structure, that business trust can now take in active income, right? The S Corp is producing active income. It's not like the LLC that you can make the partner argument, right? Where it's siphoning off passive income. K1 passive is the sixth type of passive income. There's nothing you can do with the S Corp there. And so what you have to do is you have to put some other contract in place to help you move that money out of the S Corp. And in this case, the business trust would be a management service organization, an MSO. So to your question, it's really dependent on what is the type of entity, what is the timeline. You can only revoke an S Corp status by, I believe it's March 16th of each year, like mid-March. So if you haven't done it by March of 2024, you have to stay within your S Corp for the rest of the year. We're not having that conversation until 2025. So what are we going to do for 2024? And then it makes sense, depending on how much tax you need to defer, ripping the Band-Aid off, buying two trusts, right? And that's where we kind of say $30,000 to $50,000 tax, right? Because that's kind of one or two package. It's kind of around there. And you recoup your money in a year and a half, depending on in the first year, within the first tax cycle. Yeah.
And that's not at all W-2 income, guys.
That's right. So no W-2 income and no qualified monies. So IRAs and 401k stay out. I like to say you've made a partnership with the IRS already, those stay out, but everything else can go in.
Yeah. Now, couldn't somebody get out of it? Let's say if they're 59 and a half, they could get out of their IRA or their 401ks or what, and put it into their own wallet and then put it in the trust?
They could
do something like that, correct?
Yeah. I mean, yes, again, rip the Band-Aid off and it's like, look at how much you've, in the qualified plan. Does it make sense to just pay taxes on the seed rather than the harvest, right? And then put your after-tax money and let it grow. I mean, the trust operates very similar to like an IRA where it's growing tax deferred, right?
Right.
Contributions, yes, there's taxes, but we teach you to stay within that trust structure to maximize that deferral. And there's no 59 and a half rule and 72-year-old rule required minimum contributions that make your account go broke by the time you're 85 anyway. It's a joke. Yeah.
And it is. And then they have us so worried and so panicked. Oh, you're going to pay a penalty. And it's like, well, give me the lump sum and then I'll learn from there. Let me just work with the capital I have. In particular, IBC works perfect for that because now you've started a life insurance policy that is now compounding.
That's
and
right.
You're going to catch up with whatever your IRA would have had or your 401k that just don't get me started about 401ks, the way they churn and burn accounts. It's just like, you got to be kidding me.
We're on the same page. It's ridiculous.
A blind broker could do better trading than what those people do. It's just, I like nothing against the blind either. Okay, here's a good one.
It's a good one.
This is a really good question. This could take the rest of the night, but I first would like to say, and if you haven't heard me say this, I looked for a very long time for a trust company. In fact, there's 3 or 4 other YouTube channels that use separate or different trusts. And I looked into 2 of the 3 of them. And the first one, I'm not going to even name who they were or what their trust companies were. I don't know a lot about trust, but I know that the one isn't worth the paper it's printed on. So I don't even know why or how they would even go as far as they went, as far as being a financial planner with offering a product such as that. So for me, that the homework in which I've done and the conversations I've had with Scott, what limited they were, and my friends who have all been through the process, told me everything I needed to know, and then as much homework as I could possibly get to, I did. But what say you, April, about why you love this company?
It's a great question, and we get this question. It's an important one because kind of back to that concept that there's a lot of noise out there, and this is what we've been running into, right? We've been running into other firms or other companies that, and the first thing that we run into a lot is other individuals that now want to work with our firm because they got sold a bag of goods and it was a do-it-yourself project. It became a paperweight. It became overwhelming. They couldn't find an attorney that they could actually talk to. Like they could never, ever get on the phone with an attorney when those other firms said they had one. You're running into promoters and actors in other organizations that say they have a copyrighted trust book, but you can't talk to an attorney and you can't find a CPA or an enrolled agent that can even support you on filing the trust tax return properly. So that's what I appreciate working with Nexus Business Advisors, because we have that full service turnkey solution. This is complex enough, right?
Yeah.
We don't need to make it more difficult. And you should have an attorney like Jeff Wagner, our legal counsel, where you can hop on the phone and have 30-minute consults when you need to for your legal questions. right? He can get on the phone with your attorney. They could talk their language, make sure we're checking off the boxes right before you move forward. CPAs and enrolled agents are a humongous part of this. Like, you get a trust, now you have to file a trust tax return. Is your CPA going to make sure that you declare, you have a declaration from your trust that gets submitted with your 1041s during taxes that says, I declare, you have $100,000 of distributions that have gone into your beneficial trust. You need to declare that $100,000 as an extraordinary dividend. And it's being missed out there. So I think it's important to have attorneys and CPAs that can truly be there, support you, but also have a firm that can help you out with all of the contracts and getting you through how to create a trust properly. Creation of the trust is really important, but then how you operate the trust, your actions of what you do going forward, that it doesn't unravel. So one thing that I feel also differentiates us is when we're looking at trust, and we have enrolled agents right now that are working with us that are helping other clients that have worked with other firms, and they're helping them clean up their mess. Like, they haven't put contracts in, bills of sale, they're granting and gifting their assets in. They didn't set up, they self-settled their trust, meaning they were the grantor, but then they resigned. Our clients are never the grantor that resign. It should be somebody completely separate.
Right.
Separate, right? So these are just the little nuances that get missed when somebody tries to copycat something and then just push it out there for the masses. And it's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
It is dangerous. And it's an expensive lesson. You and I know a client that we've already talked to, and he's gotten back with me, and he bought another trust. And I want to say he's got over 20 grand in the other one, and now he's starting to understand it's worthless. And he's like, wow, I just didn't do my homework, Allan, and now I'm really paying the price because now I got to duplicate that. And it's like, well, thankfully, you learn the lesson when you're pretty young, and that really leads me to this. Let's say the 3-letter agency that starts with an I comes after me. What? And they're like, well, you've been doing all this trust stuff over here. We don't like the way you were doing it. How does that process go, April?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we like working with the CPAs and enrolled agents that we have, and just the difference, right? I'm sure a lot of the audience know this already, but a CPA is state licensed, right? They're licensed within specific states. Enrolled agents are federally licensed, and they're allowed to practice in front of the IRS. So we have quite a few enrolled agents, right, that are within our arsenal that we can call on. And so when you move forward with us and you utilize our enrolled agents to file your trust tax return, that's their specialty. You can still lean on your CPA for your personal and business tax returns like you always have, but just lean on our team for what they do best. And if you utilize one of our enrolled agents to do your trust tax return and you get audited, which is incredibly seldom for a few reasons. First one is the IRS does not have a trust department. The second is that the trusts that are audited the most are your living trust, your revocable grantor trust. Why? Because you're the one that created it, and then you granted all your assets, and then you pop those assets out when you want, and you pop them back in. There's so much schemes that can go on. And so those get audited the most. International trusts get audited second. There is not a lot of history of a non-grantor irrevocable complex spendthrift trust getting audited. And if they do, and we have history of that, one of our CPAs has been doing this for 32 years. He's filed over 18,000 trust tax returns for his clients year after year. He has not had any audits on his clients. We've had another enrolled agent that's been doing this for over 12 years, another one for 8, another one for 15. We have history of a total of 3 audits. And in all cases, got the no change letter. The most recent one being 2021. That's what you want to hear from the IRS. The no change letter. You want that no change in your tax.
I've been through that.
And they supplied all what needed to be. Oh, and here's the declaration. And it was the distribution that came out of their, it was an LLC, went into the business trust. It was a beneficial trust getting audited. And the business trust had a distribution, K1, and all of that money was declared as an extraordinary dividend down to the dollar that was supplied to the IRS and got the no change letter.
Love it. Love that. It's so important in today's world that you're going to have people behind you. It's not just Allan and April. I mean, of course it's Allan and April, and that's how you guys know about all this, or you know me, or you know what. And then you're going to have my phone number. It's like, well, wait a minute. Whoa, there's a crack in the dam here. What let's fix that. What's the matter here? What happened? But I'm being completely facetious here and sarcastic, but gosh, what does that guy know after 18,000 times he's submitted something and he's only had a couple of people come back? Because people send me this stuff, and I know people do their homework, and I love that people research and they check behind our back, and please do. Please find out who Nexus is. Please get to the bottom of who they are, and please feel comfortable in doing so. But I keep having these people send me these videos of these trust things are all scams, and boy, don't get into that. But I've seen the same videos about everything in the world today. I mean, walking your dog or something. It's something as beautiful as simple, well done, logical, legal process. You can find YouTube channels that just think that's the worst thing in the world and you should never do it. There's a guy, we all know who I'm talking about, but his last name starts with Ramsey. He says that IBC is a scam. And it's like you have millions of followers, man. What are you doing to a society?
About what
it's sad. It's just like I hear people, don't get a trust. They're just ripping you off and you'll never be able to. But I want to get into this too. That was a brilliant question. But I want to get into this. How do we go from, because all of us are laymen in this, right? We don't really understand what's going on here. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. There's no way you could know all this stuff. How much is a client, once they sign on with us, with Nexus, I should say, how much are they expected to do? What is their responsibility annually? Do they have to stay on top of the trust laws?
It is about making sure that they're maintaining the trust, that we feel that our clients are in a fog for the first year, because it's natural. You're used to doing things a certain way. You're still going to operate your business just the same. It's just movement of money. I would say that the biggest action item that our business owners always have to be reminded of is move the darn money by December 31st. If you have $100,000 net income sitting in your S Corp and you have your structure set up, you have to transfer that money, like, to defer. And I actually had a few clients that did it, and I pinged them a few days before December 3rd. I'm like, remember to move the money. Remember.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do everything.
It's funny, but it's not. But it's not.
I'm like, that was mainly the purpose why you got this trust. It's like, the tax deferral. So I find that really, you would think like it's just like, but it's not a natural thing. They're like, oh, I have to move the money. So I would say that being an action item. The other thing too is the work really is in the beginning. We really do need, your help, because there's 2 notary appointments and there's a banking appointment. Got to open up a bank account at the bank. We're there walking with you, and with that journey, we're on phone calls with them if necessary. You just have to be, available, attentive to hop on a couple of Zooms here and there. I would say that just, you have to create your trust. You have to open up bank accounts, and you have to implement the trust by signing those contracts, right? To move your crypto or move your property, move money from your business. Yeah. But our clients, the clients that do move forward, they're ones that take ownership, right? They like to have that control of like, no, I want to defer that tax. So, we're looking for that type of client works very well with the trust, right? It's not like a set it, forget it.
Right.
Oh, I'm set, there's nothing else I have to do.
But it is very much a white glove service business in the sense of a trust, correct? We have that staff behind us for all our dumb questions.
That's right.
Correct?
We do. We have so you see us, Allan and me, kind of in the trenches. We're here on more the strategy side. We can hop on Zooms, consultative Zooms as long as needed. You can kick the tires, look at the hood, figure it out. We can go back and forth with emailed questions, hop on other Zooms, kind of flesh it out, use the whiteboard and draw it all out. But we're really in the trenches to give you more of the conceptual big picture of how it could work. And then when you become a client with Nexus, a welcome email. And from there, it's client services. You get familiar with James Fox, Kay Shu, and our other client service team members that are really going to help guide you through the implementation. But we're always here. We're always a squeaky wheel, and we can be that connection for you as well.
Yeah. I love that. And it's very I'm really a hands-on guy. I'm really kind of old school that way, but I really like so far the work that you and I have done with people. Like I've told, I've talked probably, I'm not kidding you, 50 people in the last month and a half out of not getting trust because they don't need it yet. And like almost everybody in this chat, you just don't need one yet. But when you do, you'll know. Like when you call me, when you get a hold of me and we get to talk for 20, 30 minutes, some phone calls, I'm on this call with these people for an hour, and it's like I go through just the basics of their situation. I'm like, you don't need one of these. This isn't ready. You're not ready for this. And it's not because you're not sophisticated enough. It's not because anything to do personal. It's just you're not in a financial position yet. I believe you will be soon. It's actually moving. I was just looking at the chart while the thing's going. Our favorite crypto is moving today in a way that it hasn't moved in like a year or two. So it's kind of a fun time to be in XRP. But they just don't. We're not trying to sell one of these to everybody in America because not everybody in America needs one of these. That's just not it. Yeah.
It's all about timing. Timing has to make sense. And you'll know when that timing is. And it needs to be a net benefit for you. Can't just be shelling out all this money and it's like, oh, it's just sitting there. Like, what is it doing for you? Right? Yeah. It's like if you've amassed enough assets where you really need that asset protection, then yes, that's why you should do it. Or if there's a movement and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna have a tax problem. Oh, I gotta hurry up and do this. Right? But timing will make sense. And it's, we plant the seeds and it's all about planting the seeds. Not for you today, but there will be the day and we'll be there to help you.
And what I really noticed is a lot of people really just want one for the peace of mind and the security of it. And they said, well, it's okay. It's okay if I'm out of pocket $20,000, $25,000. I don't care. I want the peace of mind of it. In that sense, I say to them, okay, but wait till your crypto goes up just a little bit more so it'll pay for it. But there some people are still pushing on me and just like, well, I want it, Allan. I just want to go ahead and do this thing. And I understand that. Okay, I really do. So what would you say? Okay, first of all, the big parameters to get one of these immediately is, like you were saying, income, business income before the end of the year, obviously, that kind of thing. But if you're going to sell anything large of any,
right?
Yeah, like
if
a
you're
house,
going to have any kind of taxable event, then that's when you set up this trust. Yeah, I even have clients that they're selling their primary residence or investment property. And they need there's a massive amount of capital gains tax that we're going to pay. So as long as we set this up before close of escrow, just got to put the pieces in place prior to the taxable event. If the taxable event's already happened, we can't go back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I have I have a couple of people that have they said, okay, well that seems kind of expensive, but like I think I can pull it off. And I'm like, well then if you don't need it, why would you do that right now? If you're scraping pennies up to pay for this, don't do that. Please
doesn't make sense. And the great thing is those go ahead, Allan. Sorry.
Julie asked a question here. Is April a crypto investor? And a funny story, she sent me an email last week or text and said, hey, Allan, I think about doing some of that one of these days. But
yep, I know some, but not on the crypto space. My husband and I need to get in. We've been talking about it, but I love working with you, Allan. We got to make it happen. Yeah. So he just asked me today. He's like, we need to get with Allan and get that going.
Yeah, and thank you for thinking of me. But the company is, Julie, the Nexus is very crypto minded. They have booths. I've seen Nexus booths at 3 different shows now. So at crypto shows. So they're very crypto savvy.
And the founder, Scott McGrath, is heavy in crypto, along with a few of the management staff. So it's definitely know how to work with clients that have crypto and how to navigate through that world, utilizing the trust to defer the tax. So you'll have specialists that help you out, in that arena.
Yeah. And I'm just going to answer this question just off the shoulder. Danny, yes, I do believe in exactly that. That is Cardano is going to be an avenue, as many things are going to be. Cardano is just one of many that are going to transfer Bitcoin globally. So yeah, I saw your question. April, if you had one thing that is one of the biggest questions that you get a lot, we always go through with the whiteboard. Maybe we should explain to everybody what I explain to everybody every time I get on a phone call, which is what are the three Zoom calls that you and I personally will do with anybody that wants to buy one of these, and we'll kind of get out of here on that. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, the Zoom calls.
I'm so impressed because when I tell people, no, we're going to do like an hour Zoom call and then a half-hour Zoom call and then a 20-minute Zoom call with you, and we're going to record the first one. You're going to be able to share it with your friends and family.
Yes,
absolutely. Like no way anybody does that.
That's good. That's a great thing to touch on. Yeah, we definitely are here in the front end and through the process. But to Allan's point, typically, if you want to just talk through and understand just on the basics and the framework, we can hop on a 45-minute strategy session. We hop on Zoom together, hear a little bit about what's going on in your world. And I just draw pictures to the conversation, right? Really build out some framework explaining kind of how your personal estate works, what typical trusts, how they work within your personal estate, go into kind of how this trust operates, how the relationship of that trust works, with your different entities or with your assets. And, we record it typically. We send that out along with an executive summary with the tax code and case law, so you can kick the tires and look under the hood a little bit more. And then from there, when ready, we can always set up another subsequent, time. Usually spend another 30 minutes together. Usually at a 30-minute meeting, maybe the client is you're ready. You're like, no, I've done all the research. I'm ready to move forward. We'll spend that time to fill out a client intake form, and I'll help you kind of build the framework of your trust structure by typing out everything. And then you move forward, on there. Sometimes it could be 2 or 3 sessions. A lot of times we have some follow-up. That follow-up meeting is just to kind of flesh out some additional questions that they had. Okay, they're thinking of it. Maybe they're looking at the service packages and deciding what makes the most sense. And we can help you kind of identify what works for you. And we kind of help into that. And then we move forward with the client intake form. So 2 or 3 times, but to answer your question.
And I just want everybody to know that my initial consultation with you and like 2 or 3 consultations with April and I together, there's no expense to you. We don't charge you for that. If the end of those 3 chats, sometimes 4, and you just decide I don't need a trust, I'm not going to do a trust. It was a pleasure, you know. Okay, great. And you go on with your life. There's no hard feelings or anything. This is just something you're learning, you're understanding. But I really believe that if you're in a financial position and you go through a couple of these meetings with us, and the light bulb will go off, and you'll be like, wow, it's costing me money not to have one of these if you're in that financial position in your life. And that's really important for everybody to know. So I just want to thank everybody. I don't want to keep April. She is a family lady, and we want to be very conscious of her time and that she spent so much time with us tonight. So I just love working with you, girl. I really do. And I want everybody to know that she's one of the most diligent people I've worked with in many, many years. She reminds me of my wife in the sense that she's all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and she's not going to let you just fall through the cracks. She's very client oriented, and I really appreciate you for that, because so many people today just, oh yeah, I'm so busy, I'm too busy, I'll get to that whenever. She's fantastic that way. So all right, guys, we are going, April, go ahead and stick around just 1 second, and we are going to go ahead and get out of here. So we'll see everybody. She won't be here next Thursday, I don't believe, but maybe the Thursday after we can grab her again. But anybody that is interested in discussing what we talked about here tonight, get a hold of me, alstaple@gmail.com. I'm sure that'll be put in there. And please, I know in the world we live in, you don't want to hand out your phone number, but if you don't give me your phone number, that's 2 more emails we have to do. It's like, it's kind of busy, you know what I mean? So just go ahead and give me your phone number, because I'm about to call you. All right. Okay, guys, I love you all. And we will be seeing you next week.